And to think that this guy's still a teenager, Marty.
Yeah.
He's a boy, and going past a couple of Origin players and Bradman Best and Dane Gagai as if they weren't there. If you go back and review the game, Leka's tackle out there on the right edge, his left edge against the Newcastle right edge, has gone unspoken. I think if you're talking about the competition this year, like 1 to probably 14, 15, on any given day, those teams can win it.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Big League Tuesday. Our man Tony Kemp played his professional league in both hemispheres. Former coach of the Warriors, 25 very proud tests for the Kiwis. Is that a new Barnet? And why have you got John Kerwin glasses, mate?
Cut it out, Marty. I've worn these all year, and just because your glasses are a little bit out of date, when did you get those, mate? Did your mum buy them for you?
Stop it, mate. These are Tom Ford's, apparently, as she said when she sold them
Tom
to me.
Ford?
I don't know, mate. It just means that you pay an extra $1,000 for them bollocks or whatever it is. I don't know.
How much money you're making on the show?
Round 27 to go, and we've got to start with Leka the Wrecker, don't we, Tone? Because, against your old mob, I thought the Knights deserved to win that game, actually. I thought they did enough to win that game, and then just right at the death, kick charge down. I mean, you wouldn't read about it. Lands in the arms of the one guy on the field who could do that. I don't know if anyone else on the field could. And then he runs from 40 metres, and I just think tired bodies, tired legs, and nobody could get a hand on him. It was brilliant to watch.
And to think that this guy's still a teenager, Marty.
Yeah.
So he hasn't actually, grown up when you think about it. But he's a boy making men, and going past a couple of Origin players and Bradman Best and Dane Gagai as if they weren't there to score that try. On the back of the hood already going. So I felt sorry for Newcastle myself. I thought, great theatre when you look at it. They drove around on the morning trying to find players. They actually were thinking about defaulting the game on all accounts because a lot of players hadn't been well with this gastro bug that they picked up, but they fielded a team and just got out there and got on with the job. And I think although the talking point, and we've seen it on all the socials, has been the way that Leka scored the try. If you go back and review the game, Leka's tackle out there on the right edge, the Newcastle right edge, when they went down, first of all, came to a picky. Those two tackles, try-saving tackles, where he's pulled down Dane Gagai once, and I think it was the Cogger, the halfback, the second time. But that tackle Leka made on his left edge against the Newcastle right edge has gone unspoken. It's been unspoken. But he's pulling off that tackle as a 19-year-old where you'd think Newcastle scored. I think if they get either one of those tries, they win the game, Newcastle. But they've been on the back end of a lot of those games, Marty. It's nice to see the Warriors getting one back themselves.
7 wins, 6 points or under. I started the show by saying that. What a stat that is. It says everything. Last year, as I keep saying, 6 games that they couldn't win by sort of similar kind of scores. So, to win those games, what does it do for you as a side? Because when you're not playing well, you've got to get a bit of luck sometimes, but you get luck because you keep trying, you just keep busting gut, you keep making tackles, you keep doing it. It's like Tanner Boyd. He couldn't buy it, could he? But the team still wins. What does it do for you in the dressing room, the clubhouse after a win like that?
Well, it says that the guys that are coming in, the first and foremost, because you've got to remember there's no Chance Stockwell-Clockstead, there's no Mitch Barnett, there's no Luke Metcalf, and three players that have been absolutely outstanding for the Warriors this year. It says to the guys that are coming and fill those holes that they deserve their spots. They've come in and picked up where the team basically left off, and they're carrying them through this back end of the season with a win, and that win at Newcastle for all money. Anyone that was watching that game would have thought that Newcastle were home, especially missing that first one from Tanner Boyd out front. I think he kicks that field goal every day of the week. That's where you want a Sean Johnson there, don't you? He never missed that kick, but then 42 metres out, he hits it, ricochets off 2 players and falls into the hand of Leka the Wrecker. I think when you're revising the game, you go, well, I'm just so happy that I've got players in a side that I know can go out there and do the job. And from a coach's perspective, when you're Andrew Webster, you talk about the Warriors' seasons for the last 25 years. They've lost many games by 1 or 2 points. This year, they're winning them. They're keeping themselves inside the 4. They're 4 points clear of the marauding bunch. Group 1 race. They're coming home in a flurry. It's going to be really important that these 2 games against the Titans, especially in the last 7, they get, because they've got some big games coming up against the Bulldogs, the Broncos, and I think the Dolphins are the smoky.
Yeah, we'll get into that because I'm looking at that top 8 table at the moment, and there is now starting to get a bit of separation. The top 10 teams, anyway. This match against the Titans this weekend, is there any danger of complacency here? Because you saw, I don't know if you've seen the footage of Des getting these players out of the shower before that. Obviously, had a team tour. They've won 1-8. They're just a rabble at the moment. At some stage, they will win another game. But the Warriors banked those 2 wins against that side. We're trying to get to 16 wins as your top 4 target normally. And you've got to think that those 2 wins are absolutely in the can or not.
Well, I think if you're talking about the competition this year, like 1 to, probably 14, 15, on any given day, those teams can win it. But the Titans, they are, in jeopardy of finishing with the wooden spoon. And if Des Hasler can get 1 win out of the 2 against the Warriors, I'm pretty sure he'd be pretty happy. But he shouldn't get either win the way that they're playing and the way that the Warriors are playing. So you come home on the back of what was a huge win at Newcastle. Everyone had said, Leka the record probably decided that this game was in the bag for Newcastle. And then they come up against a full home crowd, the Titans on, you've got 2, when you're looking at the weight of it, Marty, you've got one team that's buoyed and going, great guns, and you've got one team here where your coach is screaming at you, and you don't know whether you're Arthur or Martha in the showers, because he's pulling you out of them and saying, you haven't been good enough for me that day. So whether or not they take that on board and produce for Des Hasler this week, the only thing that'll catch the Warriors out will be complacency and preparation. But they've got so much to play for in these next few weeks. These games that they should win, they have to win.
Yeah.
Because when they come up against the 3 teams that are going to be dead set contests, and the Dolphins, the Bulldogs, and the Broncos, those teams are fighting for positions on the table. And now what we're talking about is, where are you going to sit in the table when the 8th finishes? Because if you look at the way that you've gone from 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, there's a point that separates the bottom 4. So any one of those teams, if you lose a game that you shouldn't and you win a game that you shouldn't, the likes of Penrith, who only a point behind Manly, I think it is, and Manly's behind the Dolphins and those type of teams, they jump up into a position that, if you're looking at from the Warriors' position, you're going, well, I can either play in week 1 3 teams. Yeah? You're gonna have to say, from a supporting side of it, which team would you?
Yeah. Well, if you finish 4th, which is probably likely, you're going to have to play either the Broncos, the Panthers, maybe the Eagles or Sharks. One of those. Wow, one of those out of those 3 or 4 teams.
100%. And you look at Manly, like they're on the bounce 3 in a row, I think it is. You look at Cronulla, they've bounced back. You look at the Broncos, well, who knows what you're going to get with them? But Penrith,
they've won 5, and Penrith have won 6 on the trot.
If I'm sitting here, Penrith at home for my first round, basically grand final. You're playing it in week 1. I'd much rather play the Broncos and definitely play Cronulla at home in week 1. So you start to think about the strategy. Does he look at possibly, if you're that tight, do you start playing the games and giving Bronco a win so that you play them in round 1 as opposed to Penrith, or do you just go and try to win all your games and getting Penrith at home and knocking them out in the first week?
And I've got to correct you here, and I hate being a corrector, but everyone loves a corrector, don't they? We're not actually playing the Broncos. We played them twice. So the games you're actually talking about, we go Titans, Dolphins, Bulldogs, Dragons, Titans, and then close out Eels and Manly. So those Dolphins and Bulldogs games, and these are two top 8
Manly
sides.
Manly was the team.
Manly, okay, Manly to finish with. Melbourne, last week, Tony, both you and me are sitting here, they'd won 6 on the trot thinking, this is the team to beat. Everyone has to beat this team. And then they go out and they were just so flat. And I don't blame Harry Grant at the end. I mean, those kind of penalties, we've seen them all year. If you just manage to touch a leg as the kickers, it's going to be a penalty. But Melbourne, what went wrong with them? I mean, the great shots of Craig Bellamy in the coaching box when you're watching that game, where he just turns and just storms out the back. It's just such great theatre, isn't it? But that's not the Melbourne side, mate, that we'd seen turning up for the previous 6 weeks. So explain that.
Yeah, no, look, I could only say it's the post-blues of the Origin one. You've got the Munsters and the Harry Grant's back. And a couple of weeks after Origin there, you get a little bit of complacency. And he touched on that bellyache, like he said, the effort just wasn't good enough in this, where they should have gone out and won it. The thing that I don't like, Marty, and this is in both sports, I watched the under-20 rugby game the other day, and you get a red card for a hit on a front row against South Africa in a final. So when you're watching a contest, especially when you're coming down to the back end of it, you don't want referees to decide these big bunker decisions that are going to turn a game and win a game for others. Like, what do you do when you're Harry Grant? Like, the guy, you just stand back and let the guy have a free shot at goal. Now, he didn't intentionally attack the leg. He went to charge the ball down. So let's say, for argument's sake, he charges the ball down, and in the action of charging the ball down, as he's diving to put his hands out, he touches the leg, but it's a charge down. Now, is that dangerous? Is that dangerous contact? And for me, I just think, like, you're getting into some real grey area here. Like, you'd be frustrated as a coach because you've got to say to your players, look, I want you to put some pressure on them, but I don't want you to put some pressure on them. You're like, rope footballers, they're pretty basic units. I'm either doing it or I'm not. Could you imagine Steve Price, the amount of kick chases he did, kick charge downs he did in his life? If you'd said to him, look, I'm going to take away your key asset, mate, the guy would be distraught. Knowing Price himself, he'd probably be in the corner crying.
Well, there's a fine line, isn't there? Because there's also a lingering foot with some of the kickers. Is that because they know as well? If you're getting close, I can just linger a foot out here, because a lot of them actually stick the leg right out now, don't they? And so I'm not saying that's a deliberate act, but
it's a crusher tackle, Marty. Like, the crusher tackle, you just have to grab the back of your neck, and a referee will give a penalty. And you can do, in every set of 6, you can get a crusher tackle, because players fall on top of each other, in some way, shape or form. You've got your neck caught in that area, and you've just got to get up with your hand on the back of it. And
they all do these days, mate. I think this season, it's a great point you raised. I think this season I haven't seen, and it's almost like watching the Premier League at times, isn't it? I haven't seen as many players ever get up going at the referee for a penalty or a call, it's crept into rugby as well, that all of a sudden players are appealing to the ref for yellow cards and penalties and so forth. It's something that they've got to keep an eye on. I totally agree with you. A couple of other things. This Panthers side, their draw, that they do actually get, they've got, I think it's the Bulldogs, Storm, might even be the Broncos. I think they've got those 3 games coming up, which is really, really tough. But they've won 6 in a row. Can they win out? I don't know if, can the Raiders win out? Can the Raiders and the Panthers actually, is that possible that they don't lose any more games?
Well, look, we talk all the time, Marty. Like, at the beginning of the season when we were chatting, we were talking about teams that were going to go on a run, and everyone was writing the Panthers off. Like, for 3 or 4 weeks there, they were sitting on the bottom of the table.
They were 3-1-7, Tony. That was your record, 3-1-7. Okay.
They were talking about, can they make it into the 8? We're talking now possibly finish the 4. Now, the wheels totally fall off the Warriors. They could finish inside the 4. And I just think with this competition this year, Marty, it's sort of it's a bit of a, like, you look at the way the Dragons game went on the weekend, you look at the way Manly beat Melbourne, you look at the way the Knights lost the game. You've got teams in any given moment that could put these big plays on and win football games, and 2 points in the next 7 weeks for these teams that are sitting in the 8 are going to be really, really crucial, because it's going to allow them to sit in a position that gives them a chance to win it. The big question that you're asking is, can anyone win it outside the 4 for the first time ever? And if it wasn't Penrith sitting in 5th position, who have won four premierships in the last 5 years and lost the 5th one,
won 4 in a row,
I think you would say no one could do it, but you would be an idiot to not back Penrith if they finished 5th.
I agree with you. I mean, look, I'm looking at the table at the moment, right? Your Broncos in 5th, Panthers 6th, Eagles 7th, Sharks 8th. Dolphins and Roosters are tucked in just behind 9 and 10. But I don't believe any of those 6 teams are capable of winning it apart from the Panthers. So I'm looking at the top 4 going, one of those teams will win it. But I don't think the Broncos come from outside of the top 4 and win it. And I certainly don't think the Sharks and the Eagles have been consistent enough all year to be able to win. That would be 4 finals games on the trot. But yeah, the Panthers are a completely different question, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Like, I think if the Panthers were in the top 4, and we spoke about this at the beginning of the year, that it was a Melbourne Panthers, it looked like a Melbourne Panthers grand final again.
Yeah.
Possibly could still happen if it I haven't gone past the first week in the finals to see who plays who, but I just think the Panthers, like when you look at, Marty, if we let's just dial it back here. If we went back to the beginning of the year, we said Canberra, Canterbury, the Warriors were in the top 4 alongside Melbourne. I wouldn't have picked that.
I probably would have said, I maybe would have said the Dogs, but I certainly wouldn't have picked Canberra and the Warriors for top 4 at the start of the season. I can't pretend that I did, no, because I wouldn't have known.
No, and so you've got Canberra, Canterbury, and the Warriors in the top 4 alongside Melbourne. You've got Penrith not nipping at their heels. So we picked Melbourne and Penrith to be there. What you got to look at is in the 8, given that those teams we didn't think could carry on, do you think when you get to the finals, the likes of a Brisbane, a Manly, a Cronulla and a Penrith can't turn those top 4 teams over? Canterbury haven't been in the finals for a number of years. The Warriors certainly haven't been there for a couple of years. They got to that major final against Brisbane. They're lacking their number one halfback playing there. You look at Canberra, who just keep turning up every week, and the question with Canberra is, can they hold on for another 7 weeks and keep that form going? And then you look how Penrith are building, and that Melbourne are going to be there. So I just look at it and go, this year's a little bit, you can't pick it, because anyone in the 8 on their day currently are knocking each other over.
All right, does that top 8 as you see it now? The Sharks have won 2 really crucial games, haven't they? They've beaten the Dolphins and the Roosters, and that's why they're at 8th at the moment. They're only 2 points clear of those boys, but they've actually had more wins than them. Are we finally seeing them, as final question, getting up to that level again? Because they added Adam Fanua-Blake. I thought that was perhaps the missing piece of the puzzle. And then they've lost games this year that you think, how on earth is this team that's such a lineup losing these games? Is that an indication, winning those 2 really tough games? They were almost like finals games, even with 7 games to go, Tone, that they had to win those games. How much of a sign for you is that maybe the Sharks are there as well?
Well, Marty, everyone talks about it. The importance of going into the back end of the year with some form is really important. Bellamy would be really disappointing that his team, 8 weeks out from the finals, has lost that game to Manly, because he wants to build some momentum going into the finals.
And then rest some players as he comes along, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, where did the strategies come from, the coaches in and around making sure that their players are going to be at their peak when they get through that next stage, regular season's finished, now top 8. I think the likes of Cronulla, the likes of Brisbane, Penrith, they're still building. I think they're probably going to be pretty hard to knock out of the 8, given that they've got some tough games. But I think everyone's got tough games going on. I think it's the games that you are meant to win that you lose are the ones that are going to count. And given the way, like I said right at the beginning, the way the points ladder below the 4, because you've got a 4-point gap between 4th and 5th. Yep. The way that the points weigh up in the next 7 weeks below 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th are going to determine what sort of final series we got.
Did you ring back to Castleford and ask how Tigger is, mate? Because we've been worried about that guy.
Mate, like I said, you're waiting for a class action to come through from all the mascots in England. Banning me game in Super League. No, mate, look, I got a text message from a couple of mates over there and a video sent who someone had actually in what they call the Castleford fan zone, so they got it from front on.
Hit?
I felt really sorry. I felt really sorry for Tigger. Obviously didn't see it coming because he had that big Tigers head on. But in the fun of the whole situation, you got to remember that you got a granddad tackling you. You wouldn't want to take that alongside.
Yeah, man, I bet you. I mean, the thing is, though, you got half a chance to get out on the field in front of the crowd, and so you gave it, didn't you? You gave it, didn't you?
Look, I've seen it. Look, I've seen it so many times, Marty, with people. Dean Lonergan's just a prime example. I remember when I first came back, started coaching the Warriors, he'd say, mate, yellow ribbon, let's get you in the ring. Come on.
That's right. Yeah.
Marty, I've got too many people out there that want to punch me in the head, mate. Dino, don't set me up. I remember talking to, I think it was Terry Hermanson, and he jumped in and Dino set him up, put him in with a boxer.
Right.
Actually boxed for the Blues at the time and gave Terry Hermanson a bit of a touch-up. And I was like, yeah, I love you, Dino, but you're never getting me like that.
This is the DSPN.